Friends, this is Bishop David Kodia back on the Kodia channel. This time, I want us to address the issue of tax and the poor. Tax, as I had indicated before during my earlier presentation, is something that we have to pay. It is an obligation to the nation, and it is a requirement even by the scripture that every citizen appreciates paying taxes. Not only taxes, even our obligation to our own families, to our own communities, requires that at some point we must sacrifice something which is out of our sweat. Tax is something that we all pay. There is what we call direct tax and indirect tax. Indirect tax you will find in the purchase of commodities that we always make. You go to a shop, you buy something, you will not notice the tax element in that, but what is presented to you as the final cost, that is what you are interested in. But there's always tax element in almost everything that we pay. And that's how the state gets its revenue. That's how state gets money to finance all of its programs. So who is to pay tax? Is it the rich? Is it those in the middle class? Is it the poor? No one is exempted, actually, from paying tax. It depends on what type of tax you pay. But again, if we look at the scripture, you will notice that there were some people who are actually identified with taxation or tax collection. One of them being Matthew, who later became the disciples of Christ. He was one of the few people who were enjoying collecting taxes. They were very influential people indeed, because they were the most feared. They had the right to levy people on behalf of the state. But when Matthew became a disciple, and later he wrote even the first book in the New Testament, St. Matthew, everyone forgot about his earlier reputation. We have Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus was also a person who was known for the reputation of collecting taxes. And in fact, his other name was a tax collector. Zacchaeus was a short man, according to the description given to him by the Bible. But he had the desire to meet Christ. He had known much about Christ. So he was longing to receive this Christ, but he did not know how to go about it. Because he was short, he thought it wise, it would be better to climb on a tree, lest Christ would have the chance of seeing him. And indeed, that happened. He was commanded to come down, and he obeyed. The first response in our transformation is to obey. When you are commanded, you obey. So, they obey us. Even my books sometimes obey me because I cannot pen them at will. So, what I want to say about Zacchaeus is that he also got transformation the very moment he encountered Christ. And he gave a powerful testimony of how some tax collectors behave. They extort money from people. They end up becoming filthy rich. Remember his testimony when he had a conversation with Christ. He said, I will return for those whom I had robbed. I will return 4 times. Where was he going to get this extra money? It was not by stealing. He confessed it. I will pay back 4 times. That shows how much hatred was there between the tax collectors and the people. Because most of them were not honest. And that's the reason why at a certain point, the people asked Jesus, the Pharisees of course, whether it is legitimate for the people to pay taxes. Because they were fed up with this extortion. They were paying taxes, but they were not seeing the value for the taxes they were paying. So they cornered Jesus, wanted to know from him, as one of the opinion leaders, please tell us, is it legitimate to continue paying taxes to this regime, this colonial regime, the Romans? Jesus said, get me the coin. And when he picked the coin, today, he took money like this. And then he showed them, whose portrait is this? Then they said, Caesar. His response was that, if it is true that it is Caesar's, then give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God. That is where the argument is. Jesus said very clearly, only give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. But today's Caesars, they demand more than their share. And that's where there's a problem. They demand more than the ability of the ordinary people to meet. And that's where there's a problem. And that's why whenever we see the tax collectors, like in Kenya, the KRA, many people don't want to befriend KRA, Kenya Revenue Authority, because the language they understand better is how to censor your pocket. You work and they take from you. You work and they take from you. That is their business. And that's how things operate. The human society is organized. It is organized in such a way that others work and others take from them. Others work, others take from them. As a tax collector, how do you feel when you take more than what is right, what is legitimate, what is within the means of the contributor, to a point that you leave the person working left depleted of every resource. Think about it. In our Christian circle, we preach obedience. Obedience to the state. Doing what the state needs, but only to the extent that the state does what is right also to the people. You cannot compel the citizenry into obedience or in total silence if the way you are paying back is not commensurate with what you get from the people. There are several cases we have heard of where those people who are working either in treasury or carry, some are filthy rich, and their salaries are not commensurate with what they own. It means there is a problem somewhere. If you cannot account for what you have, you cannot account for the sources of your income, then something is wrong somewhere. So inasmuch as it is right for us to pay taxes, it is also right for the tax collector also to do what is right with our taxes. But tax collectors are always just agencies. They are agents of the state, employed only to do the collection and then surrender the collection to the state. So there is also another thing I want to talk about. Overtaxation ruins the economy. It depletes people's potential to be productive. They are discouraged when they realize that the whole of their sweat will only go towards paying taxes. They get more and more discouraged. It kills morale, it kills innovation, it kills the spirit of entrepreneurship. So in everything we do, irrespective of where we are positioned in the governance of our nations, it is better to take into account the plight of the taxpayer. How do we compensate him for the work well done, generating resources that will support the state and all its operations? There is also the issue of banks and their charges, which is regulated actually, though it's a free market economy. But to some extent, the central bank, the treasury, they determine the interest rate. Is enormous. Borders on usury. So there is that extra interest. Interest which is enormous, abnormal interest charged on a loan given to a person. So by the end of the day, the person who has been lent the money will not enjoy, but will only be struggling to pay back the loan because of interest rate, which is so high. How comes that Islamic banks, they charge almost nil, but they charge less? What is the magic behind Islamic banks or Islamic culture? What's wrong with our own cultures, whereby we must charge exorbitantly to a point that the borrower ends up losing even his property because of inability to service the loan? Why can't we make it easier for people to pay loan? Someone can end up paying loan until he dies. There's no joy. Loan received is supposed to enhance the quality of life. It's supposed to open new channels of investment for the borrower. It's supposed to enhance the happiness in the family. It's supposed to expand someone's economic well-being. It's not supposed to drain people of the energy to be happy. These are some of the conversations we must have. How do we charge interest rates? Because these people, they pay more, but they get less. So, my viewers, I just want to open a debate here about taxation. How often do we appreciate paying taxes to the state? Are we paying taxes because we are forced to do it, because it is an obligation, or because it is obligation on our part? It is an obligation. But our urge to the state is that whatever they receive from us, it should be meant to transform our life. It should be able to help the people, the citizens, to enjoy their freedom. Supposed to create a culture also of accountability, so that in as much as the state demands taxes from us, it must also be ready to give an account of how they spend our money. Even you as an individual, even your own family, you must be accountable. You must give an account of how you expend the family resources. So accountability is everywhere. May God bless you as you ponder on all these things. We are ready to welcome any comment from you. May God bless you as we meet next time.